Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to our segment where we interview members of the Wikipedia team. I am one of your hosts. I am Josh. I play Lieutenant Junior Grade Lazarus Davis on the USS Constitution. And my co-host here is Dustin. Want to introduce yourself, Dustin?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dustin. I play Lieutenant Junior Grade James Calquhoun on the USS Gorgon.
And our guests with the Wikipedia team, please introduce yourselves.
And my name's Rich. I play Fleet Captain Roshanara Rahman of the USS Veritas.
My name's Delira, and I play Lieutenant Commander Sky Blake from the USS Veritas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us in our transcontinental interview. This is so much fun.
Trans-Pacific, I think.
Oh, even better. So, Dustin has worked on some questions I have helped a tiny bit. I don't want to steal his thunder. So, Dustin, why don't you ask the first question here?
Sure. So we'll start off with kind of a softball question here, especially because I'm sure most of our members are pretty familiar with the wiki by now. But why not go ahead and give us a brief overview of what the wiki is and how we use it at StarBase 118?
I will throw that question immediately over to our Chief of Wiki Operations. Is that your title that you've reclaimed recently?
Yes. So if you don't know, I'm trying to remember now. I've been in the fleet too long, believe it or not. I'm recording this on Thursday, and tomorrow marks
11 years.
10 years, 10th anniversary.
10?
Hey, congratulations.
I'm so sorry.
I know, that's crazy.
Did they give you a free pip for that?
They do. You do get recognition, so the awards are coming up, but that's a whole different thing. Anyway,
okay.
So I joined in 2010, and then the Wikipedia, the 118 Wiki, which is similar to the Wikipedia, is a little bit older. 2004 is when it started, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. It's basically our encyclopedia that has all of our lore. You can go to our main website; that'll have a basic introduction of our group and all that. But in terms of the actual, I guess the way to think of it is if you think of like a traditional tabletop RPG and you've got those great player guides and all those beautiful stats about characters and locations, all that, that's what our wiki is. And I don't know about you guys, but certainly that was one thing when I was first, as a prospective member, I saw the wiki and I was like, wow, there's this whole universe that these Trekkies have been building since 1994. And it was definitely, and it's fun because on the wiki, you can go back and look at any page's history, right? So if you go back and load those pages from 2004 or 2010.
Oh, gosh.
Don't
go back and load those pages from 2004 or 2010. Speaking as someone who was here in 2011, we've improved.
Exactly. We've grown a lot.
Things get modernized, and you have different tastes over the years.
But I will say, and I think that's what will be part of this discussion, is obviously as things have modernized, they've also definitely gotten a lot more complex. Part of why I got the Chief of Wiki Operations title, it was kind of a recognition of all the work and templates that I've created over the years. So if you see a template, you might notice, like, I'll have a little, especially if you go, a lot of people don't realize, this might be a handy tip to start out with. If there's any template, you can always go to the template page itself. So for example, let's say the sidebar. A lot of people use character sidebars, right? If you just go to the page template : sidebar, you'll find actually full instructions about how to use it. So
that's like all one word, right?
Yes, template and then the colon and then sidebar. And any template you can think of, the roster, for example, template : roster. And you'll find the full instruction. So that's my first wiki tip of the day.
Yeah, they're wonderfully annotated. I found that to be extremely helpful in building out my profile. Not that mine's particularly compelling or using the depth of possibilities of the wiki, but yeah, that annotation made it very approachable as someone who I don't really know much about the how to write in wiki. I mean, there's not a lot of coding, but there's a little bit of coding,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll also go ahead and interject another little tip. There is you can create your own templates too. So, for example, one of the things that I've done is created James's sidebar. So if I create more pages for James, I can just load that sidebar up.
Oh, clever. That kind of brings me to our next question. So, as members of the Wiki team, how do you envision people using the Wiki? And by that, I mean, like, what's your ideal use of the Wiki? How often would someone be using the Wiki / updating the Wiki? For what purposes? Obviously, we're not telling anyone how they should use the Wiki, but just like, what's it designed for?
I think in this case, it's really for recording things that have happened. A lot of people, when you first start, you start off with your bio and you create your page and you put all the information that you have about your character that you want people to know and to be able to sim with. But once you've created that, you then have the ability to take whatever you've simmed on your ship list and just plug it into the wiki. That's why a lot of the times I'm trying to plug the references template. So if you go onto ILI pages, you'll find that I created a template at the top that says expansion needed. And the purpose of that is to try and remind members that, yes, you can add 118 encounters, so anything that you've simmed onto these ILI pages. And we encourage it, actually. It's something that we want to do. And what we want people to do is to essentially just reference the sim that you've simmed it in and then plug it onto the page. So definitely a recording of history is my preference. I've taken a liking to trying to get Blake's page to essentially emulate a memory alpha page. That's why as soon as you go to Sky Blake's wiki page, it's essentially just a wall of text.
That's fascinating. So, can you talk about you mentioned plugging in sims and bringing that into the wiki. Can you talk about more of the specifics of that process?
Our reference template, I think we brought in something like, I think it was 4 years ago when we brought in the references template, I think on popular demand, actually. I was, I don't even remember why we brought it in. It just appeared one day. And what it ended up happening is we have a lot of intelligence lifeform index pages that are essentially just memory alpha ripoffs, which is fine for the most part, I guess. But the point is to kind of make it our own. And, the point of the RPG is to expand upon Trek. At least I feel part of it is. That's the references template is essentially just citing your sources. I guess you could say if you take the sim from Veritas, for example, that was posted today, you would essentially just put in your ref template, then link to your sim and the title of your sim, who wrote it, what ship was the sim posted to, and then the star date rather than the actual date. So that's kind of the process we're looking for.
Cool. How would one link to the sim? I mean, I think for most players, their relationship with sims is it's an email that gets sent around.
Yeah, so I'll interject with that one. There are two ways really right now. There used to be a third way, and I know Captain Nugra, Jonathan, he's working hard on getting the third way up. So obviously, most people know our Google groups, right? That's our ship archives.
Right.
And you can always link, if you actually just go to your ship's Google group site, you'll see all of your sims up there. Just click on one of those messages, and if you go to the top right, usually any message, there's like more options. You'll see show a link, and if you copy that link, that'll be a direct link that anybody can use. And all of our Google sites are public, so no matter if they're a member or not, you can put that link in, and it'll just pop up with that sim. So that's the first option. The second option you'll see a lot of people do, including myself, is if there's a particularly noteworthy sim, I like to actually just cut and paste and put it on the wiki itself. And we actually have a sim nameplate. So to go into wiki jargon, we were talking about before templates, it's template : whatever. The sims have their own namespace as well. So it'd be capital SIM : and then whatever the title of the sim is. And so you'll find a lot of people's kind of best of or showcase sims are actually on the wiki itself. That's a second option. And then the third option that hopefully, maybe if someone's listening to this, I don't want to put a timeline for Nugra, but eventually we will have our own on-site sim archive because we actually do have, the group is old since 1994. They originally were on Yahoo groups. And so to show how old I am as a player, when I first joined, we were all on.
Oh, me
Yahoo
too.
groups.
Me too. We were both on Yahoo groups.
Yeah,
I think
we're
my
both
last
old.
Wow.
Yahoo group was the first Google group. I was on the first Google group, actually, Evander. So my last one was Embassy, which was way back in 2012. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, no. Well, the reason I bring that up is if you're not familiar with people who are like, what is Yahoo anyway? They announced, what was that, a year or so ago, basically they wiped out everything.
I think it was earlier this year that they actually, because they delayed it.
Yeah, whatever happened,
Yeah.
they're all gone. All the Sims are gone. But then,
Wow.
luckily, they're not gone. Because
Good.
we had the foresight to save them. And that's what Jonathan's working hard on, building basically a site you will be able to go to, sims.starbase118.net, and it'll basically be like the Google Group site. So that's still under production.
You'll be able to see old Sims from places like Independence and Tiger and ships like that.
Yeah, those names that you might recognize if you crawl the wiki. And then add to the reference, one other reason why I think it became more popular, especially as the wiki became more popular, is oftentimes you might read something on our wiki and you're not sure, as Delara was saying, does it come from what we call alpha canon, right? Memory alpha, things that were seen on screen, or if it came from somebody else's sim. And so it became useful to be able to put like, okay, well, we revealed this fact about, I don't know, let's say we revealed this fact about Klingon history. And you're like, wait a minute, was that in an episode? And so that way, by having the reference, like, oh, no, it was actually because it was in, Ensign Smith's sim. And that was the other thing I love about our group, is that our sims are also basically a direct primary, resource. So, or primary source.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ensign Smith better watch out what he's saying.
Oh,
Cool.
dang. Klingons are now 8 feet tall, I guess. Great. Okay, cool.
Okay, I'll put the asterisk is, of course, the Captain Special has final say. So, sorry, Ensign Smith, if you want to change it, or should I say Ensign Polar. Anyway, sorry.
Right. So that kind of brings me, I think, to our next question. So are there any features about our wiki that you think are particularly unique or interesting? Things that are like custom to our community?
Templates, all the templates. Just all the templates. I'm just thinking back on a lot of our stuff, and look, I do a lot of comparing with Memory Alpha just for funsies, I guess you could say. And
sure,
it's a lot of user friendliness, I think, was the intent of all the templates that Rich lovingly created. So, do you have a say in this, Captain? Like I just.
No, I love hearing my work. I think so. You were talking about other features about our wiki. The thing I love about the wiki is, and this is of all wikis, including Wikipedia, like how many times have you been on Wikipedia and you meant to look up something and then you end up, there's a whole Wikipedia game. I'm not sure if I just recently told Delara about it. I didn't know about it, but because we're recording this in the middle of a pandemic, people are trying to find time wasters. There's a game where you start on one Wikipedia page and you try to end up on another. And I think actually we should bring this would be something good to bring for our wiki, because it encourages the idea of just interlinking pages. And so that would be the thing I would encourage. And that's the best feature. We actually have a whole category called Orphaned Pages. And so that's what the wiki ops people kind of try to help out with, because obviously the best way to drive traffic to your characters page or whatever, maybe you create a page about some beverage your character had, right? Well, you want to link that to other things so that way someone can actually find it. So I would say the best feature is definitely that everything can be connected and hot linked.
Categories, big categories thing as well. I am always saying, even images, honestly, for the last, I think, 12 months, I've been working on trying to categorize every single image we have on the wiki, because one of the habits is, the image is up there, image doesn't need to be categorized because it's technically not a page. Well, technically, everything needs a category. So there's about 500 pages I still haven't gone through to do.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of maintenance. I think we got through a lot of pages that didn't have categories. I think that's mostly knocked out of the park. I think there's only like 100 left.
I think we should introduce categories, because I think I didn't even know about categories when I first started, because it's at the very bottom of a page. If you scroll down, you'll see categories, and let's say it's a character, you might see their species, you might see that they were a helmsman, and all these sort of things. And what's the point of them, right? Because it kind of seemed like maybe a footnote. Well, actually, another issue about the wiki, unfortunately, is it can be very hard to navigate originally. If you know that you want to go see Ensign Smith's page, that's great. But how do you know how to get to somewhere else, right? So the categories is actually like an index system. And so a good practice is that every page should have a category, and you can actually navigate the wiki that way. In fact, our Memory 118 section, if you look on the sidebar and you'll see one of those, that was actually a project where we beautified the categories to treat them as a portal, basically. And that's a way that you can navigate. You can be like, okay, I want to know all about the locations of StarBase 118. I want to know about all the different foods and so forth. I think that's a good interlinking and categories. Those would be the top features that you should know about.
So with the categories, how granular do you want users to be when they're creating? I mean, do you want me to say the species, like the ship, whether or not they're a PC, an NPC, their station, all that? Like how in depth?
You can kind of go all out with that. I mentioned on Discord recently that I've hit the stage where I've been in the fleet long enough that now I have 2 tiers of categories, so it's not just on one line. There's actually 2 lines worth of categories on Blake's page. So just off the top of my head, thinking on Blake's categories, I think most of hers, honestly, the big ones that you should really just tick off would be your species, whether or not it's a Starfleet character. So if it is a Starfleet character, you have Starfleet personnel, first officers, security personnel, rangers, something like that. Then always, and I'm always stressing this one, have your ship's PC category or alumni category, because that way you can then be associated with that ship even if you've left. So people can go back through that category and be like, oh, this person served on this ship. I tried to reserve the alumni categories for PCs. I'm not sure if that's universal across the entire fleet. It might just be a me thing. It is? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely categories for specific PCs and PNPCs and mission NPCs and all of those kind of gears. And yeah,
you really just need to start with one. And I'll give you a tip. Is first of all, for your character, for example, your ship staff, your COFO, or maybe whoever is the wiki person on your ship that is the go-to person, they'll probably have set that up on your page anyway. And this is probably the biggest tip about the wiki, and the best feature, even more than all the stuff I was just saying, is that anybody can edit it, right? And what does that really mean? That means that everybody copies everybody. There's no ownership.
Yeah.
As much as we're like, this is my page, or this is my beautiful template. If you're one of those people that's going to be upset that, like, hey, I had this idea and then someone copied it on their page, then unfortunately, I would say then the wiki is not for you. You got to change about it.
Look, stealing stuff from other people's pages is the quickest way to learn. Quite frankly, it is just breaking it, going through and absolutely demolishing it, and finding out if you change this into like a 1 digit rather than a 3 digits, will it break? And then trying to fix. Gosh, there was a good story actually where I can't remember if he was an ensign or an LTJG. The XO of the Thor, not to name drop him, but he did something and it absolutely broke his entire page. And I can't remember for the life of me what he did, but I'd never seen a wiki page so broken.
Oh, we should name him. No, we should name him. That was a Lieutenant Commander Jeffrey Teller. The reason why we bring it up is because after he did his edit, and I'm giving him a hard time. This has nothing to do with him. But after he did his edit, the entire wiki did actually break down.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
It was an unfortunate coincidence. And the reason why we bring it up is because in character, Mr. Teller has been responsible for many a ship's explosion. But yeah, going back to copying things, I would recommend, if you like somebody's page, that's a great. So you were asking about the categories, right? Go to your captain's page. Notice the categories they put. Go to your department chief's page, and look at what do they do. And that's how you really learn. That's how Delara and I learned. That's how I learned how to build all the templates. It's just copy and paste and see what works. You go back and you realize, oh, I actually don't need to do all this fancy stuff. I could have just simplified it. But that's fine. That's just part of the process.
So,
Now,
so when you're saying copy, are you saying like open there? Because I'll tell you how I copy when I'm copying in the wiki. I go to the page, I hit edit, and then I am just like finding the templates or however they've got things formatted in.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
that is exactly what you should do.
Totally that.
And if you're worried about us, I remember there was a question on the Discord about what's the point of a sandbox page. Well, that would be the point of it. If you're worried that, you shouldn't really worry, because on the wiki you can always just revert to the previous version, or you can use that preview and really spam that. But if you're really worried, you can create a sandbox page, and all that is you go to your user page, like let's say mine is user:rich, and then put a / and then type in sandbox, and then you can just set that up as a temporary page where you're experimenting with all that code that you are lovingly borrowing.
Stealing. It's always stealing.
I'd like to circle back on categories, because those sound really useful and a really kind of straightforward way for an individual listening to the podcast to like build out even just their character page. Where would I find a list of all possible categories?
Oh gosh, now you're testing me. Off the top of my head, I personally go through categories by hitting. I'm not sure if the general user base can actually hit special pages. I think if you just click on the categories, well, it's actually easier if you go to the very bottom of a page and just hit the hyperlink that says categories before it lists all of your categories. Because then you are taken to the absolute master list, where you can actually search for what kind of categories are there. So I'm pretty sure there's a gazillion different categories.
If you scroll down all the way, and you'll see like categories, human and whatever for your character. If you just click on the actual word categories, that will bring you to the master
list.
Thank you, because I know that like a lot of ships to help with the onboarding process will load up a template for someone's character. And a lot of times that template will be populated with some baseline categories of like the ship and Starfleet personnel and that sort of thing. And so I think a lot of users might be, thinking like, oh, well, that's done. I don't mess with that. That was made for me kind of thing. But you're saying go for it. Dive in.
Hey, within reason. Like, obviously it'd be a bit weird if all of a sudden all of these ridiculous categories showed up, and to be honest, your character doesn't quite fit in them, but you think they kind of match. So,
you know what I like about it? I think it's good you had us both on, because you can see the different approaches. Like, I'm just like, go in there. Just dive in, break everything.
But I have to think about this from administration, because in 3 years' time, I go through these categories and I'm like, what is this page which has very little to do with the thing it's in the category for?
I realized the difference because even though I'm the chief of WikiOps, I used to be an admin, and then at a certain point, I told our fleet admiral, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to be an admin anymore. Whereas Delara is still an admin. And so she needs to go later and clean up everybody's stuff.
Honestly, it's I enjoy it, but it does take a chunk of time. Like, as I said, with my project at the moment is primarily to do with images. Originally, when I started last year with maintenance, my original plan was to go through all of the pages of the ILI and essentially uniform them so that they have the necessary headers. On most ILI pages. I got through about 500 pages, and then I was like, you know what? That's okay. 500's enough for me. There's no more now. But yeah, look, maintenance. If we could get some more people to help with maintenance, that would be great. But it is a very long slog. Like, at the end of the day, you really do need to set the time apart for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll jump around in our questions here then.
Yeah.
Because that brings up this one, which is how would someone who's interested in joining the Wiki team go about doing that?
Well, the easiest way now with the fleet having moved more and more to Discord for organization is that there is a Wiki channel. And so usually you can just give us a ping there, and we'll add you to the Discord role. And so every team or task force has a role. You'll get added to it, and you'll get pinged if there's ever any Wiki project. You can also, if you're old school, you can send either Delara or me a direct message on the wiki directly. You can,
cool.
Or an email. Emails are good too. I like how you said, "Oh, we're old school," and then proceeds to say Discord.
Right.
No, old school. I mean, talk about using the wiki messaging. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I
I get
the
you.
first time I
Wiki
ever got
talk.
a message, I got it from the Fleet Admiral, and oh my gosh, I was like scared, like oh my god, because you suddenly get a huge notification at the top of your wiki that someone has left you a
Yeah, it's like
message.
bright yellow, and it says you have one new message, and you think about it, go, do I really want to click on this? It's okay though. When you have one of those messages, it's okay. Just click on it. It's fine.
Anyway, so yeah, that's all the different ways to get to us, and we'll get you right started. So don't worry. We're always looking for people to help. So if you even show like your hand is, you're raising up a little bit, we'll find you.
That sounded vaguely threatening, but also positive. I like it. No, but looking at the clock, I see we're running short on time. So, Wiki team, are there any parting thoughts that you want to leave us with?
I'll let Delara take that first.
I was going to let you take that. Parting thoughts. I don't really have parting thoughts. I think my biggest thought is, look, back when I started, we didn't have templates. We had like a basic layout, which you can still see. And I'm one of those old style people who, when we get new ensigns, unfortunately, they don't get the new fantangled template, because the whole point of the older templates is to encourage other people to essentially look at other pages and borrow stuff off of them, and kind of to try and promote, I want to say individuality rather than this uniform bio look, which can be very, very short and very basic, which is fine. But at the same time, I look at my page for Blake, and I look at a newer page with using the newer template, and I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with Blake's page because it's comprehensive in a way that I enjoy. So if you have a particular style, definitely don't try relying on like the basic bio template that you get given. Always try something new. Feel free to break your page as often as possible. If you miscategorize, that's okay. Nothing on the wiki is 100% perfect. The work is never done. That's just not how the wiki works. It's the same with the Wikipedia, honestly. Every page is constantly being updated with new information and with different style changes and whatnot. So definitely break your page. Those are my thoughts. Break your page. Break it as often as you can until you work out how it works.
And then come run into the wiki team.
Absolutely, feel free. We will tell you how to fix it, or if we can't work out how to tell you how to fix it, we'll try and fix it ourselves. Which is, it's always entertaining when we do get those massive pages broken, please send help kind of situations. Which is
no, it's great because we'll learn something. We'll be like,
exactly.
Oh, okay,
Everybody learns something from those situations. So definitely, look, I had to learn the hard way how many different words for colors that the wiki understood. Because if you go back to some of our original rank pip system, you can actually see that for some of those rank pips, there are so many different colors. And with those different colors, there is a associated wiki color. The amount of words for colors on the wiki is astounding. Like, just Google if you need more information on how to use our wiki. Sometimes you will get more information from Wikipedia. Steal stuff, it's fine. Break it. Always break stuff. Always work out how it works because you broke it, and then that way you can see the difference between the broken version and the way it was when it was working. So yeah, that's my takeaway thought. There you go.
Yeah,
that, Rich.
No. I think that's great because I'm going to use that to then expand that to the rest. So you were talking about people's character pages and bringing their own take to it, and that's another thing I love about our wiki. If you go to some other groups, and it makes total sense, they'll have a very standardized look for these are what ship pages should look like, and this is what the character pages should look like. I love that our wiki treats the character pages, I almost want to say kind of like a personal website in a way. Like I'm sure you've seen it as you've been looking at people's character pages. You notice a certain style. You're like, okay, this person, they presented, they have their, I'll plug it right now. Like one of our lieutenants, Vanliff, she has a shoe section on her page.
Yes.
All the clothing and all
very
the colors.
image heavy. Very image heavy.
Very image
Whereas
heavy,
you go to other pages and it's very dot point heavy, or other pages that are very lore heavy. So you have paragraphs upon paragraphs. Looking at myself. It's those kinds of things.
But it reflects her style is what I really want to get to. And so Wiki, my takeaway thought with it is that's not just about character pages, everything. So when I first started years ago, starting to make templates and stuff, it's definitely influenced the look of our wiki now. So like the rosters, you can see all the people's images. It didn't used to look like that. It used to be just a table with your names and all that. But it wasn't like I really asked anybody. I know.
No, I'm just looking. Sorry, I'm just thinking back on the old ship nabs, and I'm just like, oh gosh.
But the point is, I didn't really ask anybody. I just created it, and then someone was like, "Hey, that's really cool," and so then they added it to their ship, right? And so the same thing I would encourage, if you have an idea for your own ship and you want to do something, or maybe you're doing a mission write-up, and you're like, "This would really be." I saw somebody the other day. They were creating a new mission report kind of template. You know, all these sort of things. The wiki is really whatever you want it to be. So that's kind of the fun aspect of it. It's almost like a meta game in addition to your simming. So you know how simming, we're creating these stories and your character is bringing that lens to it. Well, you're actually doing the same thing with the wiki. So I would encourage you to kind of, you start out thinking of it as just a basic way to store my character's backstory and adventures that are happening. But as you get more and more comfortable with it, go ahead and start thinking about, okay, what do I really want to see myself? Like, take ownership of it, that this is my wiki as well. Like, how would I want it to look? And I think you'll see that most of us are pretty enthusiastic about it. So.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us for this interview. So I have been your host, Josh.
And I'm Dustin.
Junior grade, Lazarus Davis, etc. Yes. Rich, Delira, thank you so much for joining us. And we should do some more interviews, I think, with our different teams. This has been great.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.